sake. Should be topic number 3 states the African origins of architecture. So let me just put this out there. This is a Camji verse video. I appreciate Camji. But this video is a little too long for Shoot the Breeze. So I'm going to play half of it and we'll have to infer the rest, I guess. But we'll watch it and then we shall discuss it. Let me just share my screen.
Africa gave architecture to the world. The oldest building systems came from Africa. In mainstream architectural studies, typology of house forms are one of the ways that scholars have analyzed African structures. These are rectangular, square, oval, and lodge-based plans. The following house form typologies are observed. 1. Round plan, freestanding, diameter less than height, adobe or stone walls, stone foundation, thatched conical or trumpet-shaped roof. 2. Round plan, freestanding, diameter equal to height roof of poles, leaning against central framework. Poles encased by dry stonework, grass or turfs at base. 3. Round plan, freestanding, diameter equal to or greater than height. Walls of mud and or wattle, bamboo or palm fronds. Thatched conical roof often with veranda. 4. Round oval or rectangular plan with hemispherical or lozenge-shaped profile. Skin covering usually associated with cattle kraals. 5. Rectangular plan, freestanding framework of 1, 4 parallel arches. 6. Rectangular plan tent, framework of 2, 4 rows of parallel forked sticks surmounted by horizontal crosspieces, skins or blankets as covering, occasionally arches. 7. Round plan, freestanding conical roof and no walls, framework of straight sticks, sometimes thatched. 8. Round plan, freestanding, framework of flexible poles embedded in ground and tied under tension, known as beehive type, usually convex. Thatch of banana leaves, more usually of grass or reeds, sometimes low perimeter wall, sometimes central support. 9. Round plan, freestanding, 2 stories high. Walls dressed in stone, slightly domed mud and pole ceiling, thatched roof. 10. Round plan, freestanding, 2 stories high. Walls of small round boulders set in mud mortar, external staircase, walled courtyard, 2-story porch, thatched roof. 11. Round plan, freestanding, flat roof, walls of mud or mud and straw, flat roof of poles and mud and straw. 12. Round plan, freestanding, shell mud roof and no walls, slightly convex profile encased in surrounding walls. 13. Oval plan, freestanding, asymmetrical peaked thatched roof supported by conical mud pillar and mud arch, walls of mud and wattle. 14. Oval plan, freestanding, mud and or wattle walls, thatched saddleback roof with semi-conical ends, sometimes on stilts. 15. Round or oval plan, freestanding, correlated stone construction, untrimmed sandstone blocks, doleritic boulders or trimmed doleritic. 16. Round plan, 1, 2 or 3 stories in height, built coalescing to form tower houses, adobe bricks, flat roof and upper floors of poles and straw mud. 17. Crown plan, concentric circles, freestanding central court or impluvium, adobe walls, thatched saddleback roof. 18. Square plan, freestanding, conical roof, adobe brick walls and palm fronds, thatched roof of grass or reeds. 19. Rectangular plan, sometimes freestanding, thatched saddleback or lean-to roof, walls of planks, bamboo, cane matting, roof thatch of palm leaf mats, reeds, bark palm fronds. 20. Rectangular plan, arranged contiguously around a central square open kraal, walls of wattle or stone and mud, flat or wagon-shaped mud, and wattle roof supported on forked uprights. Known as Tembe styles. 21. Rectangular plan, freestanding, thatched saddleback roof buildings are pillared facing a court, adobe bricks. 22. Rectangular plan, thatched saddleback roof, units built around court or impluvium having continuous roof, adobe walls. 23. Rectangular plan, adobe brick walls, flat or vaulted roof with palm fronds, buildings arranged in walled courtyards. 24. Rectangular plan units, adobe bricks or puddled walls, flat adobe roof reinforced with wood and palm fronds, 25. Square plan, freestanding, walls of poles or palm fronds and mud, hopped roof with grass or thatched reeds, 26. Square plan, freestanding, thatched hip roof framework of flexible poles embedded in ground and tied at apex in tension, thatched roof of grass, carved door frames. 27. Rectangular plan, freestanding, walls of roughly dressed stone in mud mortar, reinforced with horizontal wooden beams and short round cross pieces. 28. Rectangular plan, freestanding, with stone rubble and cement walls, thatched roof, multi-story, often with elaborately carved wood doors. 29. Rectangular plan, freestanding, thatched roof of palm leaf mats, sometimes with two long sides lapped over other two, walls of wattle and adobe, sometimes with carved wooden doorposts, sometimes on stilts. 30. Square plan, tall pyramidal thatched roof, thatch broad leaves. 31. Cave houses, sometimes small courtyard in front surrounded by mud wall or fence, walls and daub wall, sometimes built across mouth of cave. 32. Underground or semi-underground, dug-in rectangular buildings, sometimes with excavated passageway in front, walls of mortarized stone, mud bricks, flat or slightly wagon-shaped roof of earth mud, and poles supported on forked uprights. David Hughes developed Afrocentric architecture based upon the analysis of the built environment with respect to historical and cultural considerations. The historical element of analysis is based upon the precedent in monuments and ancient civilizations. It includes considerations for spatiality, proxemics, house form typology, and tectonics, which is the art of construction both in relation to use and artistic design. The cultural element is based upon customs, ceremonies, living patterns, and physical artifacts. Environmental analysis is based upon geology, climate, and physical features. Architectural theory is based upon normative theory centered in value judgments, and positive theory centered in scientific and systematic applied criteria. The positivist position is based upon the focus in semiotics and abstractive derivations used in the manifestation and analysis of architectural form and image. Hughes' approach is positivist and is based upon the analysis of semiology, which are cultural symbols. These are an analytical, evaluative foundation for conclusion in the theory. This is to move towards a multidimensional approach of life and customs. Semiology in architectural theory has two distinct directions. The first, that the architecture is a symbol within a given society. The second is that society and its cultural elements provide symbols or physical elements that can take on architectonic manifestations, inform image, or spatial manipulation. The first is analytic and used to define the meaning or language existing work conveys in the society. The latter is confined to the design process and allows the abstraction of cultural elements, particularly three-dimensional cultural artifacts, into a distinct architectural style. Both efforts are employed rigorously to establish an empirical basis for assessing existing historic and contemporary work to find its African origins. The design process is highly symbolic, establishing values or hierarchy based on place, purpose, client, user, cost, function, and many other associated variables. There are a multitude of ways to apply cultural variables in design. Dika Akwa, a Cameroonian anthropologist and contemporary of Cheikh Anta Diop, established the Mulongi system. The term Mulongi proceeds from longa, to build, hence longi, construction. It is used by Dika Akwa in the sense of a construction of rules, that is an architecture, constituting a system of knowledge in three axes: vertical time, horizontal space, oblique historicity, tied together at their point of intersection. Mulongi, as a multivariate paradigm, can be used to discern the reasons why and the methods how our African ancestors navigated throughout the continent and constructed dwellings in the respective environments that they encountered. Dika Akwa utilized Mulongi to affirm the relationship between classical and medieval African structures, as well as to provide a template for symbolographic analysis in African communication systems. In terms of established precedent, the oldest settlement forms in Upper Nubia are the earliest examples of classical African architecture, which can be seen throughout the African continent today. Some examples of the building systems in classical Africa are 1. Step Pyramid 2. Zosa Complex at Saqqara 3. Merkut at Giza 4. Hamarkut at Giza 5. Temple at Karnak 6. Temple of Ramesu at Thebes 7. Temple of Luxor 8. Temple of Philae 9. Abu Simbel 10. Meroe 11. Kerma. Some examples of the continuation of this architectural tradition in Inner Africa are 1. Darti Chitwalata 2. Great Zimbabwe 3. Lorapini Ruins 4. Great Wall of Benin 5. Timbuktu. Namdi Ele specifies the Kemetic house form as one of the earliest gable structures in the world. Here, King Nama sits on a royal chair on a raised platform. This contains many of the foundational elements of classical African architecture that are now seen in contemporary Africa. The first are adobe bricks. This important because the term adobe is a Met Remenkimi loanword according to the research of Dr. Theophile Obenga. The next elements are vaulted roofs with ventilation, external stairs, moldings on top of framed openings, projecting sills, bioenvironmental mimicry, fractal proxemics, enclosed courtyard. Ambenjo, who refers to this as the Sudanese style, articulated its geographical extent, which can be found throughout the African continent. It includes the Sahelian corridor from Senegal to Cameroon and modern Sudan, the Savannah region of Angola, the Great Lakes region of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Malawi, and Tanzania, as well as Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and South Africa. In modern African architecture, you see traditional crafts and ornamentation processes in applying artifacts to architectural design. Local custom and practices also dictate occupancy standards of these building systems. Here are some contemporary examples. 1. Ouagadougou apartment building in Burkina Faso. 2. Institute of Culture in Bamako, Mali. 3. Ifan Center in Dakar, Senegal, with polychromatic designs. 4. Sports Palace, Bamako, Mali. 5. Bank of West African States, Central Marketplace in Burkina Faso. 6. Dogon Buildings in Bandiagara, Mali. 7. Port Elizabeth Family Estate. 8. Maseru Sun Cabanas in Maseru, Lesotho. 9. Basotho Hat in Maseru, Lesotho. 10. Central Bank of West African States, branch building and headquarters, and Vernacular Triangle Office Building in Dakar, Senegal. 11. Office building in Gaborone, Botswana. 12. Independence Square, Dakar, Senegal angle facade acts as sunscreen. 13. Dar es Salaam office building with colorful baffles as sun shading. University Auditorium building, University Chapel. 14. Bank building in Bamako, Mali. 15. Bobo Dialasso, Great Mosque in Burkina Faso. 16. Cathedral of the Martyrs in Kampala, Uganda. 17. Universal Chapel in Lesotho. 18. Catholic Church in Cairo. 19. KWAZ Headquarters, Monument to the People, Sofitel International Hotel at Lome, Togo. 20. Miss Bengu Higher Primary School. 21. Cairo Apartment Building. 22. ZANU PF Headquarters.
I'm going to have to stop it there. Trigger Happy is asking me if I could play it faster. You know what? I'll try. I've never done that on here before. Let me see if I can speed it up a bit and see if that will add something. So let's try it out.
23. Pentecostal Church, Bulawayo, Zimbabwe. 24. First National Bank, Gaborone. 25. Jomo Kenyatta Convention Center in Nairobi, Kenya. 26. Nairobi Hilton, Safari Club Hotel, Office Complex, Harambee Co-op Complex, University Church, Freedom Center. 27. Independence Monument, Arusha, Tanzania. 28. Apartment Building, Sheraton Hotel, in Cotonou, Benin. 29. Private Residence, Segu, Mali. 30. Timbuktu Hospital. 31. Zambia University Building, Finiko Tower. There are many African cultural retentions in African American architecture. Many of the cabins, constructed by enslaved Africans in the South, contained many elements from the continent. In regards to the building materials and construction techniques employed in the construction of early slave houses, historians and folklorists have argued many different angles. Those focused on the Deep South and the Caribbean colonies emphasize the mud-walled, thatched-roofed slave cabins on the sugar and rice plantations. These cabins usually consisted of a 10 to 12-foot square floor plan, a high-pitched roof, 1 to 2 windows, and a chimney of stick and clay construction. Excavations of early slave houses at the Caribou and Yorgan sites in South Carolina led many scholars to conclude that West African architectural traditions traversed the Atlantic through the minds of the slaves. The archaeologists that excavated the site speculated that evidence for such a technique, or a similar technique, rammed earth architecture, is common throughout Africa, the presumed origin for some, if not all, of the inhabitants and probable builders of the structures at Caribou and Yorgan. Rammed earth techniques represent one of many mud wall methods, including cob walls, pisé walls, and wattle and daub. Excavations of other southern sites, such as Cannon's Point Plantation, 1794 to 1860, also revealed mud-walled slave cabins. Leland Ferguson, Teresa Singleton, John Michael Vlach, and others have used the data from these excavations, along with historic documents, to argue that African, primarily West African building traditions, did survive in the New World. Singleton actually goes as far as saying that architecture provides the best documentary evidence of enslaved Africans influencing their material world. They all illustrate that dirt floors, mud walls, and thatched roofs existed in regions of West Africa during the slave trade era, and the continuation of those distinctive African traits in America provided excellent proof of cultural transference and persistence. One of the prominent examples is the shotgun home, which originated among the Yoruba people of Nigeria and spread to Haiti as the Kaile before finally reaching the United States in the Louisiana area. Shotgun houses generally consist of a gabled front porch and 2 or more rooms laid out in a straight line. Rooms are directly connected without hallways. Shotgun houses may have derived their name from that room format, as it was sometimes said that a bullet shot from the front door would pass through the house without hitting anything and exit through the back door. However, the term may also be derived from togun, the Yoruba word meaning house or gathering place. Although shotgun houses are small, were inexpensively built, and generally lack amenities, they have been praised for their architectural virtues, which include the ingenious use of limited space and decorations such as gingerbread trim and brightly painted exteriors. They represent a unique African-American contribution to architecture in the United States. Here are some examples of African-American architecture with prominent African elements. 1. Olin Engineering Center, Harvey Library, Hampton University, grand entry and atrium with Afrocentric cosmogenic themes, designed by architect John H. Spencer. 2. University Towers, Howard University Dunbar High School, designed by Bryant & Bryant Architects. 3. Plymouth Congregation Church, Bible Ways Temple, U.S. Embassy Building in Madison, designed by Madison International Architects and Engineers. 4. Museum of Afro-American History, expansion of Cobo Hall Convention Center in Detroit, Michigan, designed by Sims Varner. 5. Grace Temple, Detroit, Michigan, designed by architect Nathan Johnson. 6. Governor Douglas Wilder Residence Hall, Hampton University, designed by architect John S. Chase. 7. College of Business, Steely G. Building, College of Medicine, AME Church, 5th District Precinct Building, designed by Susan Campbell, of Brits Owens Architects. 8. Hot Sauce Williams Restaurant, designed by David Hughes. African architecture's pivotal role in modernization is deeply intertwined with the principles of Pan-Africanism. By drawing inspiration from diverse cultural traditions and historical contexts, African architecture exemplifies the African spirit by emphasizing solidarity and cooperation among the continent's nations. The harmonious fusion of traditional styles and contemporary techniques not only reflects a shared heritage, but also reinforces the idea that a united Africa can leverage its collective strengths to overcome challenges and chart a revolutionary course. This will work to enhance the collective consciousness of the African continent and diaspora, to reaffirm our rich history and create a collective vision for a prosperous and unified future.
Yeah, thank you for that suggestion. Trigger happy. That was a good one. Because I find inspiration in videos like that. When we talk about re-Africanization, these are some of the things we will have to talk about. You know, I usually talk about it in terms of art and science and things of that nature, music, but architecture falls under that art and science too. And I think it's important that you have the stylings of our ancestors where we are. For example, if you look at an image of an Arab country, without even knowing what country it is, you could tell it's an Arab country just from how the architecture is set up. You know what I mean? I think it's important for us to kind of get back to that. So I'm happy I was able to play the entire video. It took a little bit long. I should have been playing it at 1.5 speed from before, but that was a good. I think that was a good video to remind us of. Don't let these people tell you, like Pastor, what's the pastor name? Pastor Mann, I think. David Mann is his name. That Africans didn't build shit and all this kind of stuff like that. Yes, we did. And the retentions are still out there. Some of the stuff that I saw in this video, I actually seen back home before. So very good video. I'm glad I was able to play it all the way through. Azuliism, they mentioned Haiti there with the shotgun houses. Are you familiar?
I don't. He said the shotgun houses are like the ones with no doors, right? Like it's an open space. That's what he said. So I could see what he was talking about. From what I remember, where I stayed, there was a couple of open, like it, like there was no door closing in most of the section of the house. But I can't really recall that, to be honest. But because he said shotgun is like it goes through the house. It's an open house, right? Like there's no doors closing certain sections off, right? That's what he meant.
Front door lines up with the back door, and so if someone shot a bullet, it'll go straight through the house
Mm,
from front door to back door.
I'm not. Nah, I don't remember that because the houses I stayed in didn't have that shotgun type of joint. No. So I'm not saying it's not in some of the houses in Haiti, but the ones that I stayed in wasn't like that. So.
But in general, Uzuli, what are your thoughts on the African origins of architecture? Do you think it's important for us?
I was just watching this video by this young lady. She was talking about a design that's called fractal. Let me see, fractal. What's it called? Fractal. What she said is like a bunch of little houses that if you do a drone shot, it looks like the whole village, like a fern leaf. All the little leaf look like the whole leaf, if that makes sense. So she was talking about. I was watching this thing, and she was talking about how it's called how that type of African um geometry it's called fractal geometry. So fractal geometry is when that like you're in a neighborhood, all the little houses look like if you do a drone shot, looks like the whole, if that makes sense what I'm saying. So and she was saying that this way of building a community is more beneficial to humans. You are less stressed. It creates like a sort of familiarity between everybody in the neighborhood. So she was saying that design versus the design that's here in the cities here where it's like dog eat dog, everybody's stressed, and she's saying that the African architects geometry of building a neighborhood is more conducive, more aligned with humanity, or is more beneficial to humanity. So I agree with this video saying we all know based on what they said. So but the whole thing is, are we gonna? A lot of us, I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer, but a lot of us will look at this and be like, no, that's nothing. That's what we all. That's what they say. I- As until a European man says that, what that person says, a lot of us are not gonna believe it. But kudos to that brother. And yes, I agree with what you're saying. Everybody is saying Kofa. You always gotta look back and to to give the next generation to see, hey, we were not uncivilized as they claim. Even nowadays, I was watching this thing like where people said walking barefoot is way better than shoes because shoes really destroy your foot. Shoes really give you bunions and corns. So now they're saying that how African and indigenous people was walking barefoot is more beneficial to the human body. But then we said that was primitive. We said that was trash. So, hey, man, at the end of the day, at the end, we're going to realize the way that our brothers were living in alignment with nature, Mother Earth, is more beneficial to all of us. So I respect that. That was a good video.
Appreciate that, Uzuli. Shout out to the brother Marcus McGee. Good to see you out there, brother. Shout out to Provide Triggers for Evolution. I'm sure if she's not out there, she's will be listening to the playback. And shout out to Real Black Gentleman. I saw him in the chat earlier. I didn't get to shout him out. So shout out to all of you guys. Thanks for that, Uzuli. With that said, let's go to Anthony. Anthony, what say you? Did you see anything in there that stood out to you?
Yeah, man. Hey, man, that was a great prompt right there, man. That was a great prompt. Like, I want. Can you hear me, Coco?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
First, I want to talk about the shotgun houses first. You know, like being from Louisiana. Okay, we know all about them. I used to live in one. I lived in one. As a matter of fact, it's the shotgun house that I lived in is about 3 blocks from me right now. The house that I used to live in. Okay, the shotgun house. Okay, now we know that the shotgun house came, like I'm in Shreveport, and it came up from New Orleans. Okay, I actually, when I learned about it, I said, man, you know, I'm just studying about it. I seen it like when I was in 8th, 9th grade, was in Louisiana history, and I was reading about it. Okay, and so what I found out was that the shotgun house, like, you know, you had people, you know, you had different ethnic groups who were bought as captive Africans, you know, to Louisiana, you know, to America, but to Louisiana. And but what I found out that it was from Haiti. It was Africans who came from Haiti who came to Haiti, especially after the when the revolt was started off, like I think like in 1791. And this was when the shotgun house came to Louisiana. You know what I'm saying? And then I just started looking at houses in Haiti, no old houses. You can't necessarily like look at houses now like during the Azuli's time when he grew up, but like look at, you know, a long time ago. And so I was looking at some books about you know, Haitian architecture and things like that, and I ran across it, and I seen it. You know how the predecessor of the modern shotgun house. You know what I'm saying, and how it was built like you know, with like thatch roofs and stuff like that. But I seen it, and I took some pictures of it, man. I put them all in my archives. But also, my studies led me to South America, Suriname, among those African maroon communities in Suriname. They live in the same kind of houses, man. Have you ever seen that, Coco? You ever seen some of those houses of the maroon people in South America? I mean, in Suriname.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't they look like they're kind of like the shotgun houses?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I mean, I've seen that. I mean, you know, my studies carry me all over the African diaspora. You know, when I was doing my research. So yeah, you know, I mean, I'd already, you know, when it came up, you know, I kind of laughed because I was like, I'm saying, I hope they don't say nothing about the shotgun house. I want to throw that in, but he brought it up anyway. But which that's great. But also, I wanted to. It was something that you alluded to about that pastor, you know, that who was doing that show. I remember that show, talking to all the white people, talking about we never built nothing over 1 story and stuff. Well, we could go back to the Nile Valley, not in Kemet, not in Egypt, in Sudan. Now, in the Kerma culture, the Kerma civilization of Sudan, and which flourished between like 2600 BCE and 1500 BCE. Now, these were Nubian people, black people, Nubian African people. Now, they built the city of Kerma, which was their capital. It was the epicenter of their culture, Kerma. And Kerma is spelled Kerma, Kerma. Okay. In Kerma, they had a building they had built. It was a temple. It was a temple. And right now, today, it still stands. No, I mean, it's like, no, it's not what it looked like then. It's kind of, you know, fell in and stuff, but it's still there. You can see it. You can just Google it up. And it was called the Defufa. The Defufa, I think it was called the Eastern Defufa, because there was 2 of them in the city. They built 2 temples. I know, and but one of them still standing. You can still see it, and it was like 300-400 feet high. I mean, and it's still a tall, big building. It's called the Eastern Defufa. So I'm saying, no, we built buildings that was more than 1 story high. No, we did that. So yeah, I mean, you know, like that pastor, he obviously didn't have any knowledge of African history, you know, of African architecture. Okay, I like to go to another thing. If we think about, you know, they always like to make jokes about the mud hut. Now, you know, the Africans, they built mud huts. But Koku, have you ever seen those beautiful Ndebele homes in Southern Africa from the Ndebele people? You know, those and seen a whole community like it was a village. You know, I mean, how beautiful they are with the beautiful art, with the colorful arts around it and everything. You ever seen it? Those Ndebele homes?
I have to look that one up.
Yeah, those They in Southern Africa. These people call it the Ndebele in Southern Africa. They got these homes. They like it's like what they call a mud hut with a thatched roof, but they got colors all going through them. You know what I'm saying? Beautiful colors. You know what I'm talking about now?
I'm not certain. I'll have to look it up. But go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, anyway, I mean, that was very beautiful, man. I like seeing like a whole Ndebele village. You know, when you see it, you just like it just captures your eyesight. Because when I see African architecture like on that level, I mean, then you know we also can't forget about the beautiful the Dogon community, the Dogon communities in Mali. You ever seen those in the mountains where they had, it kind of reminds me of that cliffside dwelling in Arizona. No, I forgot what they call it. But it's what the indigenous people here created, the Anasazi people here created. It's a beautiful, it's a cliffside dwelling that those ancient Native Americans had built. But they got that same thing in Mali, man, among the Dogon people. It's beautiful communities. You know, these brick buildings and, you know, I mean, mud brick buildings. And I mean, it looks it's so elaborate, man, and beautiful. But like I said, when I think of African architecture, I see the same thing that Picasso seen. You know, when he said, man, look at that, like, you know, looking at the African mask, because that's what he was inspired to create a whole art genre called Cubism behind that African mask, but not also African mask, but those African villages. You know, it's just the funky, the geometrics, you know, the geometric shapes and things of it. So yeah, man, I mean, I think African architecture is beautiful, man, especially when you know about it, when you can get past hearing some sucker talking about some mud huts and everything and hear what it really was about. Because like you can look at the logic, even the logic of the so-called mud hut. Man, don't you know they had a science to it. In the summertime, inside of those mud huts, you stayed cool. And in the wintertime, it was warm. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, they had a knowledge of the way of the climate and everything. And so I mean, we could go on a day because they basically covered a lot of the stuff. So I mean, I'll just be regurgitating everything that we've seen. But yeah, man, I mean, it's a beautiful thing. When I think of it, I think of some beautiful art, man. And for some reason, I think of jazz music. You know what I'm saying? I'll leave it right there, man.
No, that's good stuff. I put it up on the screen here. The Mbele house in South Africa, and you know, I'm gonna sound crazy, but I've seen stuff like this in different countries in the Caribbean. I wasn't familiar with it until I just looked it up here. I spelled it wrong in my search, but thankfully Google knew what I was talking about. But yeah, you can find this kind of stuff in the Caribbean today still, in parts of the Caribbean. That's pretty dope.
Hey, Coco, cool. Ain't that funky, man?
Yeah. That's pretty nice. Like Trigger Happy said in the chat, he knew what you were talking about. He, like me, says, I think about the architecture conversation a lot too, because we have to imagine how our cities would or should look like independent of the West and even developed Asian countries. I agree with that 100%. Thank you for that, Anthony. Takru, by the way, mentioned he's from Suriname, so he's familiar with those houses that you mentioned as well. With that said, let me go to Black Steel. Black Steel, the African origins of architecture. What say you to it?
Very good video, very good prompt. I think that we need to understand so much more of our history because for so long we were told we don't have any, right? So many situations Africans have, you know, built stuff and built cities and constructed civilizations, but yet that didn't happen, or they don't. I've even heard people go so far to say that, you know, we've all heard the aliens built the pyramids, but you remember, the Benin bronzes and all those other works of art. They try to say those are people from Atlantis, or the city of Great Zimbabwe was built by some magical white Africans who disappeared. Everything is done as a way to diminish or obscure the reality that Africa was never backward. White people didn't bring civilization to Africa. White people interrupted Slavery interrupted our history. Colonization interrupted our history. They did not. They, if anything, they went to Africa seeking wealth because they didn't have any wealth of their own. They went to Africa because they wanted the gold and the resources. Africa was doing just fine at that period of history. So these videos are good. I think now that I think about it, there's a lot of shotgun houses here in Florida. My grandmother had a shotgun house growing up when I was a kid. I used to be over there. Um, and that was just our life back then. I didn't really even connect it to any type of African architecture, but I think that is very interesting. So I will leave it there. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Black Steel. Jose in the chat says Great Zimbabwe is Tarzan, is Ho Town, LMAO. Takru in the chat says I dream of labyrinthine homes of very altitudes, I guess various or varying altitudes, large and small spaces and such. He said, realizing there are no black people in Tarzan. With that said, Buana, you saw the video, you heard everything everyone had to say. What say you to all of it?
No, I think that first of all, let me say this: I find it interesting, and maybe Anthony probably know the history of it, and because I find it interesting how we attribute architecture or development when it comes to Western development. When a white man builds something, they have nice homes and whatever, but we have shotgun houses. You know, it's just interesting how we get that name brand to our architecture and what we built. That negative connotation. Why is it shotgun? You know, it's like the black man built something now, shotgun. But let me just say this, because maybe Anthony will be able to break it down for me and explain the origin of it, because I don't know why that name got attributed to how we develop our homes. I question that. But needless to say, I would say this. We always had our way of developing things based on the environment. My family is from an island off of Nassau, where I'm from, currently from, called Andres, where the people there used to develop and build their own homes based on that environment that they was in. So if you are in a tropical climate, you have to build homes conducive to a tropical climate. So your houses have to be cooler. Just as if you was in Africa, the houses have to be built based on an environment that you are in. That's why you see these thatch roof houses. They're built in a very circular way, and it's built within a compound. You know, it's interesting. The architecture was very practical for the environment that it was in, very strategic and practical. But the white man saw that and said, "Well, these are huts. These are no development. You know, these are." But if you in a considering if you in a climate that is, 100-degree weather, that it has seasonal rain, and you have to prepare for and it doesn't have any certain breeze and certain things going through it. You have to build for a particular environment. So you can't have Western style homes. You have to have homes specifically for the environment that is in. That is extremely practical. So you won't have houses on top of each other looking like, these high-rise apartment buildings in New York City. No, you will have places that are spaced out, because you want people to be able to have room to navigate, to breathe. You have animals walking around, because you have animals when it's extremely practical, the considerations that went into our architecture, and how when white men saw it, they dwindled it down to, oh, okay, these are savages living in the jungle, and they don't know how to strategize, and they don't know how to think about the environment. Their homes are not like ours. Therefore, we can assign this and that and the third. They're not square houses. Some of them were, but they're not square houses. They're kind of like, circular homes. But these things was strategically thought out for specific kinds of reasons. And I really wonder why some are, like the Afro-Native world was saying too. I think that we should have homes that are circular, because in those style homes, when a hurricane comes, it wouldn't beat on it as opposed to square houses, square architecture and buildings and such and such. So I think that the consideration that goes into doing these kinds of things, it really needs to be considered. Only one man, in the West who really tried to, well, what I know about, who really tried to bring back certain kinds of things like that was Malachi Z. York in Atlanta. That's crazy. You know what I mean? To really even put it into the mind of the Westerner that, hey, how we build and how we create architecture could look like this. You know, that's the only black man who I could refer to as trying to bring back African architecture in the West. Besides them, it was people before him was copying. Well, I think that Anthony Browder said that Washington, D.C. is a carbon copy of a lot of the architectures in Egypt. But the white man was creating these kinds of architecture. So it's just interesting how these things are thought about, how these things are considered, and how these things are fundamentally put together. But I think that we really should, when we're in a status where we're free to really build as we wish to. You know, I think that if we was free to build in areas and situations like we would want to, I think that the structures would be completely different than how we look at it right now currently. I think it'd be very, very different than what we see in currently. Because I think that African mind would come up with other kinds of things, other kinds of structures, other kinds of living arrangements. You know, I really feel so. But to be brief, I'll just leave it there, Koku.
You know, in Nassau, and thanks for that, boy. In Nassau, there's some concrete roundhouses and stuff in Nassau right now.
They are. I saw them. Yeah. West and Yellow Elder.
Yeah,
Yellow Elder.
Yeah, Yellow Elder have them, and some were not too far from C.I. Gibson too. But Yellow Elder has the most of them. Yeah. It's interesting. Now, Afro brought up the point of, you know, hurricanes is the determinant why concrete is in use. But on a real level, all this money we have to spend to build concrete homes, what if we were making these adobe bricks and finding ways to make those bricks stand against, you know, the natural disasters like hurricanes and stuff like that. Like, you know, Bonner just said something that made me pause for a second. He said, we don't have the ability, I think he said, or the freedom to build how we want to build. But I'm just curious, what stops us from building how we want to build? If you don't mind. Can you guys hear me?
Sorry, Koku. I stepped away for a minute. I think that what stops us is if we let's say that the Amish, for instance, everyone knows who the Amish is. The Amish is able to operate in a way where they almost live completely off of the grid. They basically say, we just want this land to freely be able to do what we want to do. We're not going to ask you for your electrical supply from the government. We basically operating really free and clear off of the grid, away from the government. That means we have our own water supply. That means if we have to produce and make electricity, we'll produce these kinds of things ourselves. And they've been able to do a whole lot of stuff from that, by the way. A whole lot of stuff from that. I think that if people was to do something like that, we would have to have the same kind of mentality, like the whole Liberian experiment. But even that, when you talk about Liberia, they still was operating at the behest of the American government. I think that if we was to do certain things like that, we'd have to say we are free and clear of operating on our own. We are operating on our own. You know, and then you would see the different structures. Then you will see the different ways of modus operandi. We're gonna operate like the people in Dimona, Israel, and even in Dimona, Israel, they are still under the government because they still at the protection of the Israeli government. So when you say you're going to do certain things like that, you must have your own defense. You must have your own so many different kinds of things. And I certainly believe that if there was a group of serious people getting together, willing to go the distance, I think that African governments would allow even people from the West coming into a space for us to do our thing independently, understanding our story. But that is a big, huge buy-in. That's a huge buy-in for a lot of people from different spaces. But we could dream. You have to dream for a dream to come true. You have to dream before a dream come true. You must dream. So, but that's what I would say. I would use the Amish as an example, because these are the people who first and foremost say we are going to live grid free. We're not going to participate within the grid, and we're going to do our own thing. And then from that standpoint, you'll be able to freely operate as you wish, because you don't have to go and pay into, okay, you have to do it with the government. Say you have to build this high, you have to build this wide, because you're operating within the government kind of restrictions. But when you're operating outside of that, like the Amish, like even the Indians in America, now you paying service to another kind of government, another kind of a mentality, because you're not governed by those restrictions. You're not governed by those restrictions. But like I say, these are the words of a dreamer. But I would say, for a dream to come true, you must dream first. I'll leave it there, Koku. I'll leave it.
Absolutely. So, yeah, thanks for that. I guess the brother heard us talking about him. So let's welcome in Kamji from Kamjiverse. How are you this week, sir?
Was good. I've been chilling. How about yourself?
Good. Thanks for coming through. Good video here, man. What would you like to add?
I appreciate the conversation. I was just listening in, and I noticed, people talk about the mud huts and so-called, and another brother mentioned earlier about the shoes, how, you have all these, physical therapists, talking about how, it's better to not wear shoes. Africans have been earthing, as they call it. Basically, they want you to walk on the earth so that you can receive the ions from the earth's core. And those ions are supposed to have healing properties, according to certain medical studies. But it took this long, drawn-out process for them to get to that point. And the same is the case with what's now called vernacular architecture, or basically, architecture that's very, very quick and easy to build and move with highly disposable materials, highly environmental materials. Architectural scientists believe this to be more environmentally efficient, and especially more efficient when it comes to the construction time and using these as-built materials. Africans have been doing this for thousands of years. And the different intricacies of the forms or typologies of the houses across the continent, they just display a large, inter or intracontinental diversity, or a large different tool sets that they use with respect to the different conditions that we had. And I'd also like to say that in terms of materials, David Hughes mentions this in his text, and it's a huge misconception about African architecture, which is what I wanted to put in the video, is the fact that it's not necessarily the materials that you use, because some people think that if you use concrete or if you use steel, it's not African. And actually, there's an article by Hamadi Bakoum, which is one of the Ethiopian scholars out of Senegal. And he speaks about the ironworking traditions or the siderolithic traditions across the continent, and the fact that Africans were able to make soft iron from hard iron, or brittle iron, so-called cast iron, right? And in order to do this, you have to pass through steel, right? So the use of an iron ore as early as 2600 BCE is detected in ancient Kimi, and cast iron has about 6% carbon, whereas soft iron theoretically has 0% carbon. But in order to go from cast iron to soft iron, you have to pass through what's called steel, which is about 0.85% carbon. And some people may say anywhere between 0.25 to 1.5%. But bottom line is that steel has less carbon, right, than cast iron, but more carbon than so-called soft iron. So Africans going from cast iron to soft iron understood steel. as early as 5,600 years ago. So we can use this in our modern context, with respect to the environmental conditions and African-centered parameters. And one last thing I would like to say on the video is that this video, or the study of architecture specifically, confirms the Ethiopian migration model from that Nile Valley basin, because some of the earliest prototypes of these building systems you see on that Nile basin, and then they're articulated throughout the continent, as far as Angola, and Mozambique to the south, and as far north as Senegal and Chad. So this is another case of the unification of the African continent, and it's something that we could build on in the modern day.
I appreciate that, Kamji. Again, thanks for coming through, and again, congrats on this video. This was a really good one for sure. Like Real Black Gentleman in chat said, respect to Camjiverse. So, does anyone else have any last thoughts on this prompt? Yes, Anthony, unmute your mic and go ahead.
Yeah. Big respect to the brother Cam G, man. That was a great prompt, man. And I just wanted to piggyback off of what he was saying. And about say for example, the kingdom of Kush. The kingdom of Kush, which was located in the Nile Valley of Sudan, of North Sudan. The kingdom of Kush, was like the successor of the Kerma kingdom. And you know that the Kushites were known throughout the ancient world at that time as being the best metallurgists in the world. They were known for their iron working. I mean, even though iron working, other Africans had been doing it a long time before, but they were known in the whole the so-called classical ancient world. The Mediterranean basin and the East, the Western Asia. The Kushites were known for their metalworking. They were known for their steel weapons, the iron weapons and everything. They were known for that, and it's even later historians, like the European historians, they would call Meroe, the capital, the Kushite capital at that time. They called it the Birmingham of Africa. Because Birmingham in England was known as a steel capital. That's what they would call the city of Meroe, the Kushite capital, the Birmingham. They were known, and it also contributed to their downfall because cutting down all the trees and stuff. Excuse me. But yeah, Africans had been working in iron working and steel, for a long, long time. I just wanted to piggyback off of that real quick. I'll knock off right there, Coco.
Oh, Anthony, could you also explain why do they call houses in Louisiana or Black Steel? Maybe one of y'all could tell me. Why do they call your homes shotgun houses? What's the origin of that, bro?
There's different theories. The more charitable African-centered theory is Togun, like it's a variation of Togun, which is a Yoruba word for dwelling or settlement. And then other people have believed, other scholars, Western scholars believe that it's called that because you can shoot a shotgun from the back of the door to the front of the door. But these are generally inconclusive. And we do have plenty of indigenous words for dwelling and home and all of these different architectural elements that we could use. But like the brother was saying, like most of the things associated with Black culture are demonized in the Western world, so we have to be careful with some of the terms that we choose to use.
I think Anthony was trying to respond, but you on mute, Anthony.
Can I say something?
Yeah, Urzuli, then Anthony. Go ahead.
I would say something that I just noticed by what the brother Buana asked and what the brother just said. If we take out, okay, just go with me there. I might be off my mind. If we take out the T, we get Shogun. If we take out the S, H, we get Ogun. So a lot of these things that maybe I'm just going somewhere out of nowhere, but shotgun, you take out the T, Shogun, a lot of, and throughout I've heard that a lot of the Nigerian culture, Nigerian words are found in the Japanese culture too. And I'm saying that I might be off my rockers, but hey, I'm not leaving any stone unturned. Another thing I wanted to say, we forgot to mention. I don't know if he did it in this. Maybe I didn't listen. But there was a the Great Wall of Benin, I think, or the one that's in Nigeria. They said that wall was like 3 times the length of the China of the uh, of the Wall of China, and they say the British destroyed that whole architecture that even Nigerians nowadays didn't know about it. So, like they say, they do a lot of work to make it seem like Black indigenous people from Africa, from all the world, didn't do anything, and it's sad that our that many of our children are not looking up to the. And I think that one of the reasons, Buana asked a question, why we're not going back to building stuff like that. Um, uh, Goku, it's low self esteem. They've been programming you all your life, mine included, my next generation included. That y'all only live in huts. Y'all don't build nothing. And the brother just said something that was even the huts are superb. In the summer, it's cool. In the winter, it's hot. Such a simple architecture is so brilliant, but they make it seem they call you primitive. Even in the word primitive, it's prime. You the prime. You the first. But they've played a super brainwash on our mind, on our imagination. What's the brother that used to come here from time to time? Oh, I forgot his name. We're living in that reality. We got to create our own reality, just like Warner just did. Live in your imagination. Make your imagination come true. We're living in that imagination. Gas them up used to say that. Like, we're not living our reality. We're living in their reality. So even that little, even though, bring it back, sorry, brother, but Boana used to joke about the mud cookies that the Haitian used to make. You know what the funny thing is? I was on freaking Amazon. Guess what I saw? People selling mud clay to eat, but they was making fun of the Haitian people for cooking it. And the mud and all of these things are more nutrient dense than any other food that we get here, the fast food. So I'm just saying there has to be a reprogramming of the mind from our people to be like, believe in yourself, believe in your, and you have to tap back in Sankofa. You have to tap back in to that energy to make you want to dream of building architectures like the brother just put in his video. That's all I said. Thank you.
Hey, I got one more point that y'all could look this up. If you look at European cultures, most European cultures, especially the ones pre-Christianity, they built with grass and sticks, even as late as like the 11th and 12th century. So when Europeans spread this false propaganda as if their architectural systems were that much sophisticated, prior to influence from outsiders like the Saracens and North Africans, you know, they're lying. They're full of shit. I just wanted to leave y'all with that.
Appreciate that, man. I saw a photo from I think it was like 1895. That was showing Paris from somewhere in France, but outside of Paris. They were show and they were showing a guy came out of a hole basically, with garbage basically as a roof. So this idea that these people were so advanced, in fact, there's writings that they have where they were remarking at how wonderfully designed, how clean Africa was when they came. The Portuguese did, how clean it was, how the roads were so neat, how the houses were neat. So yeah, those guys like David Mann and them, man, that's why you have to shut them up and shut them down. You know,
Even
I want to go to
Goku, before you just said about the situation about the garbage. I just saw something that they said high heels were invented because the
yeah,
streets of Europe were so littered with garbage, feces, and urine that they had to invent high heels for the upper class when they walk so they wouldn't step on shit in their own thing. So, they're trying to make us look bad, but at the end of the day, there wasn't even that all of that themselves. So we just gotta make sure that Sankofa is everything.
Yes, sir. So real quick, make sure to subscribe to Cam. I'm sure everyone here is, but make sure you subscribe to Cam Diverse. Real Black Gentleman in the chat said Black people have been metalworking for 10,000 years on GP, on general principle. Sister Raw's out there. She said African Haitians design straight through temple of togetherness overstand. Takru says, I know the true reason you believe we must know of the North. I'm not sure. Oh, he was talking to Trigger. My bad. Let's go to the last topic for tonight. We'll make it quick. Shoot the breeze topic number 4. So you guys just hang out for a few more minutes. We'll try and end it.